Rebecca, great to see you. Welcome to Popternative.
Thank you, Peter. I appreciate it so much. Really appreciate it.
I'm really excited to chat with you, and we will. There's a lot to talk about, but the Pitt is the episodes have been dropping on Max, and just like nonstop kind of adrenaline, medical drama. People recognize Noah from ER. He's back with this. We'll get into specifically your character and your episodes, but like, what was that like for you, that script to screen journey, just in general, not going into the whole full circle thing we'll talk about, but like reading these scripts and filming it?
Well, what was so great for me about the scripts and the way the show is done is that it's linear. A lot of times you're jumping around. And because they were doing the whole 15 episodes in 15 hours, it was all, taking place basically kind of in real time.
Yeah.
And that's what was so, really just different than ways I've worked before or on different shows.
Yep.
And yeah, so that was really cool. Almost like a play.
Yeah.
From theater. So that was really nice, I have to say.
Absolutely. And, the episodes that your character were involved with are out now, and there's a lot of things out there about that really tough storyline. And I find it very interesting because, for a lot of ways, I feel like this role really hit home for you specifically because your father was a surgeon, correct?
That is correct. He was a kidney transplant surgeon in Boston. And, as long as I can remember, dinner table conversation was always about, well, not always, but a lot of medical stuff, about operations and about disease and patients and stories and this, that, and the other thing. So it's something that I definitely grew up with. And his brothers are doctors. One of my sisters is a nurse. So I come from that science. I'm not obviously, but I'm very familiar with that. And as far as the character too, I think certainly for most of us who get to a certain age, and obviously it runs the gamut, but, most of us are going to lose a parent, at some point in our life. I've lost both mine. My mother died at 46. And I was 24. And then my father much later. So, this is not something that's that difficult to imagine. No. Obviously. But yeah, so there was, I had a lot to draw on.
Yes.
What's interesting to me about this character is that both my parents died of cancer and I had time to come to terms with it,
yes.
As much as you can. Even though, as I tell, when I talk to people who are losing or have just lost their parent, it doesn't matter how prepared you are, you're not prepared. Yeah. I think the other thing about coming from a medical family is that I always thought that science and medicine could do everything. Mm-hmm. So when they told me at age 24 that there was nothing else they could do for my mother, I was shocked.
Yeah.
I was shocked.
Yeah.
I was even shocked with my father when he was dying, and he called and he said, Becca, there's nothing else to do. And I was just like, what do you mean? Mm-hmm. And I think this character has the same reaction. Like, what are you talking about?
Yep.
Fix him.
Absolutely.
Right?
Well, that's a really interesting segue to my next question, because, in regards to like the pace of the Pitt, it's very fast paced, right? It's these like patients coming in and out, right? And the doctors and orderlies and the nurses. And your storyline is that little kind of like, break a little bit, right? Where the doctor goes in, checks on, the siblings and their father and everything, right? So I was wondering, what was the pace like specifically for you as an actor filming your stuff in the Pitt specifically? Did it feel quick paced or did it feel a bit slower? Because it was like a slow burn, right? About how they were going to treat your father and everything, right?
It isn't. It wasn't. That whole arc takes place in 3 hours?
Yes.
For that woman who I think is someone who is used to being in control, she's the oldest kid. She's the one, that kind of says what's going to happen, all of a sudden to be thrown in this thing. She gets a call, right? First thing in the morning saying, come to the hospital, your father's come in. She runs to the hospital, and then in 3 hours, they're unplugging him.
Yeah.
So, it's, in terms of coming to terms with that, it's very fast, but shooting was really, it didn't feel that way. It really felt like we were there in the moment, and it was just like we were in a bubble.
Yes.
Dealing with that situation.
Yeah.
Which was incredible.
No, absolutely. Very interesting, and one of the coolest, most full circle things, because we did talk about the fact that, your father was a surgeon, kidney surgeon, but another interesting thing, specifically a TV kind of full circle moment, is the fact that, you were on an episode of ER. John Wells directed that episode of ER.
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Like,
I know.
I know.
It really was like just serendipity or something. Yeah. I mean, that episode of ER was actually my very first job when I got to LA. And it was my first guest star. So I'd done, a couple tiny things in New York after graduate school, and then when I came out here and I got that, and and John Wells directed it. And so my only regret was I didn't get to see him on set. He was never on set when I was there, because I was really, looking forward to saying, oh my gosh, you won't remember this, but I was in that episode. So, but it's pretty cool.
It is really cool. It's interesting, right? Because Noah was in both of them. So people are just automatically on John Wells. They're talking about ER, but at the end of the day, I mean, and you're someone who's been on both shows, like it's not ER, like the Pit is not ER.
No, not at all. And I think that they're, I mean, you can't help but make those comparisons.
Yes, of course.
People involved, but it's not. So, and I think it's very different than, a lot of the medical dramas out there.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It feels so real and raw to me.
Mm-hmm.
Watching it. It's got humor though, which is great. And everybody is so good in it, I think. So
absolutely. Some general kind of questions now, Rebecca, that you can maybe relate back to the Pit, but like so much happens before you go to camera on a project, right? There's a lot of kind of discussions, preparation. So from an acting storyteller perspective, with the Pit, for example, it could feel like two journeys, right? Before filming the Pit and after filming the Pit. Or for you, does it feel like one big journey with multiple steps in between from a storytelling acting perspective?
Yeah. But to me, it's all one big thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked on the show for 5 weeks.
Yep.
And because of the way they shoot that show, and this was something that Noah had, I don't know if you know about this, but when the original casting, he had written a letter that casting sent out to all of us who were auditioning for it, saying, listen, this is an ensemble piece. It's almost like repertory theater. A lot of days you're going to be on set, but you're not actually going to be, in a scene, but you're going to kind of be in the background or whatever, because the whole thing is alive, right? That whole area is obviously full of different people having different experiences. So, so we were on set a lot, even, not, even the days that we were not actually, in doing a scene. So but for those 5 weeks, I mean, I was just in it.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy because I've recently I'm a filmmaker myself, right? And I'm realizing, I interview a lot of, I was talking to a lot of my colleagues who were actors and filmmakers before, and, talking about how, the set life, right? And being on set. And then when you go on set, you realize because I'm someone that always does a lot of things, right? But when you're on set, you're on set. There's no time to think about anything else if you think about that.
Right. And, because I kept thinking for that time, I was, even on every day, even when I wasn't there, I was like, God, I just feel so sad, because I was carrying around that grief because I was thinking about it all the time.
Yeah.
And preparing for those scenes and all that stuff. And, it really, I mean, I think about people who do movies for months on end and have to be in that place. And I think, oh my God, I mean, it was emotionally draining, to be honest.
No, absolutely. And I kind of wanted to ask too, because, it's all storytelling at the end of the day. And you've gotten to work on a lot of TV shows and films that are different worlds. You play these different characters, which is really cool. But I'm just wondering how separate are past projects versus something like The Pitt, like preparation or mindset wise, right? Like, do you bring things from like Longmire, You're the Worst, like ER to something like this? Yes. Okay. I'm like a 90s kid. So like You're the Worst is like you're probably not that surprised I brought that up. I remember you from that. You were Gretchen's mom in that. I remember.
Yeah. Well, that was a really fun
Like,
job.
are they separate once you wrap them, or do you bring things from other projects?
Because to be honest, the You're the Worst character, that kind of, haughty, uppity, stick up her bum woman is often who I play, or some, more often than this part that I did on The Pit. So there's certainly those kind of that. I certainly have those. That thing is more readily available.
Yeah.
That's not
no, for sure. Well, it's funny you just mentioned that, because you do such an incredible job on The Pit with this character, where there's a lot of emotions with this character, but this character is very firm in regards to what she wants to happen. There's, she's in a situation where the doctor and her brother are explaining to her about a lot of things. And it's like not one of those things where it's in out one ear out the other, but it's very firm with what she wants to happen, right? With her father.
And she realizes it's not going to happen.
Correct. Is that challenging from an acting perspective, playing someone like that who's very who's getting all the information thrown at her?
Yeah.
But is very firm in her ways. Like I just find that interesting, in my opinion. Like, what was that like?
Yeah, no, I mean, that kind of comes naturally to me, I think. I'm also the oldest of four girls. So, and my parents were divorced at the time of my mom's death. So I was kind of in charge, sort of, at 24. But I'm kind of used to sort of being that person, who kind of takes the reins, takes control of the situation. And the other thing that I loved, so, she has to deal with this, this is the way it's going to be. We're going to do this for him and this for him, and he's going to be fine.
Yes.
And it's like, no, he's not going to be fine. And then of course she has all this, she has a very conflicted, complicated relationship, unresolved relationship with her father.
Yes, for sure. To add to that, though, and to be fair towards your character, there's other characters like the siblings or parents of patients that are very similar to what you just said as well, right?
Yeah.
Where they're like, you could do this, 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 and everything will be okay, right? So it's not specifically your character, if that makes sense.
No.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we do in a situation like that. I mean, as I said, with my parents, with my, even when my father was, and he's a doctor, and he was like, there's nothing else we can do. And I'm like, I can't get that. There has to be something else that you can, because hope is an unbelievably strong human emotion.
Yes.
Because I remember actually speaking to my father about this years ago when I was a kid, and just saying, so how, do you ever tell people, that they're going to die? And he said, you don't say it like that, because you have to still allow them to hope and to go through the process of coming to that conclusion on their own.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. No, for sure.
It's very hard to give that up.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I just find you look at a lot of those characters, and you sometimes forget that it's like a 15-hour shift what you're watching, the 15 episodes, because it's it's going back and forth with everything going on, and it feels like you and your brother have been there for a week, and we're talking about 3 hours, right? I
know. Yes, absolutely.
And I think it's just a testament just to how it's shot and written, and
the writing is fantastic, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And then last question before we wrap up. I find it on The Pit, you have a lot of, especially with like the patients coming in and out, but specifically with like the characters that work at the hospital, you're seeing a lot of like self-reflection, soul-searching, come-of-age kind of things happening on the show of all these characters, right? And you start learning a lot about these characters, right? And I'm wondering from your perspective, I mean, maybe you could talk about it with this arc specifically, but you've also been around a lot of characters where you played kind of the mother of these characters going through this thing. What do you think about playing characters that are lost or like doing self-reflection and soul searching? Is it more fun? Is it more challenging? Because from the viewer perspective, they don't know they're lost. So I just find that fascinating. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, I think anything like that is really interesting as an actor because, nothing in life, as we know, is black and white.
Yeah.
You might think it is, but it's not. And that's what I think they get so well on the show is just the conflict of things. Mm-hmm. Like you go in one situation, you think this is how it's going to be, and then it is not that way. Yeah. Or as you said, learning about yourself. Like I would have expected myself to react this way in that situation. Yep. All of a sudden I'm not reacting that way. And I think that's what's so, to me, that's what's so interesting about acting because, you go into it and you're like, okay, I'm not going to make a decision about how this character is going to react to this. Yes. I want to get in there. I want to hear what the other people are saying and allow myself to, naturally, organically react to the situation.
Absolutely. No, that's very well said. And people can check out The Pitt on Max. Episodes are dropping week to week on Max, but the episodes where your character has just an incredible storyline are available now, so they can go check that out. Rebecca, so great chatting with you. Thank you so much for your time.
It was so great. Thank you so much, Peter. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you so much. There is an Instagram account which is just your name, I believe, Rebecca Tilney. If people want to keep up to date with everything,
it's actually the Rebecca Tilney because
it's true, you are the Rebecca Tilney.
Sorry, but yes, I had to put that there. So yes,
but you are. It's true. It's facts. You are the Rebecca Tilney. So they can check it out. Well, this has been Pop Alternative. YouTube.com/PopAlternative for previous episodes. Till next time, this is Rebecca Tilney. You can catch in The Pit on Max and PD Beats. Signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Pop Alternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Pop Alternative on YouTube.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.